Bismillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Pure Masculinity and thank you for joining us on today's episode. Today, we have a special guest who is one of my friends. He is a medical professional and we want to talk about mental health. It's November and in this part of the world, it's Men's Mental Health Month. So today, I have a specialist in the house who is a psychiatrist, he's a medical professional, and inshallah, we will be delving into the conversation about men's mental health. So, welcome, Dr. Yasir Abdulkareem. Sorry, please cut that part. Welcome, Dr. Yasir Kareem Adeyemi. For us to get the conversation started, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Yasir.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's nice to be here today.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm honored and thrilled to have this conversation about men's mental health with you. So to get started, can you share a bit about yourself, your background, and what drew you to specializing in mental health?
Alhamdulillah, I'm Yasir Abdulkareem. I'm a consultant psychiatrist at the foremost NeuroPsychiatry Abdulkareem, which is the World Health Organization's Center for Collaboration and Mental Health in Nigeria and, of course, in Africa. I schooled at LAUTECH, Bumosho in Nigeria, and then I was one of those who benefited maximally from mental health psychiatry posting. And during the psychiatry posting, I particularly noticed that aside the other medical subspecialties, which more or less taught us majorly about biological part of life, I got a particular specialty that looked beyond that, that talked about psychological, social, and even spiritual part of well-being. And I felt like this appeared to be the complete medical practice. I mean, we talked about religiosity, spirituality, men's health, women's health, children's health, older adult health. We talked beyond medicine. And then I felt like I was going to be a psychiatrist. And luckily, I got mentors. And that was, alhamdulillah, today, I've been finally fully licensed as a consultant psychiatrist in Africa. Alhamdulillah,
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. That's beautiful. Allahumma barik. So good to know that the challenges and the excitements that comes with the field are part of the things that lured you into it. So that's quite interesting and good to know. So in your experience as a specialist, as a consultant in mental health, what are some specific mental health challenges that men face?
Thank you very much. The main challenge that happens to men as humans is that concept of masculinity. Masculinity is biologically identified, emotionally challenging, and of course, socially demanding, because we are just born as boys and then we graduate to become men. So right from birth, the expectations on men have been enormous. Unfortunately, when we look at the genetics of man, a male is born with the XY chromosome, while the female is born with the XX chromosome. And the double X chromosome in a female actually makes a female have a higher survival rate than male. That's why when you go to the children emergency unit, the SCBUs where they take care of neonates, most of those that will have conditions that you see there, they're actually the boys. Because having just an X chromosome, they're actually less immunocompetent than their male counterparts. And as they grow up, most of the conditions you see among children, the infections, the autism, attention disorder, even mental retardation and co, they're actually commoner among boys, with ratio as high as 1 to 4 compared to even the female. So even right from the childhood age. So in essence, the child mortality rate is actually higher among the boys than what you say in the girls. And it goes like that. And even when you talk about the level of the survival rate, the mortality across all ages, as females tend to live longer than males. So biologically, a man is already deprived. Unfortunately, despite this, the society expects a man to be more biologically competent in terms like they expect a man to be tall, handsome, rich, strong, have a higher physique. And even when women want to marry, they want to marry a man that is tall, is handsome, and unfortunately, men are not all born to be that. So biologically, a man is already challenged. Now, when you now come to the emotional, a man is expected to be emotionless. Even from the youthful age, you'll be told that boys don't cry, boys don't cry, don't cry. When a boy and a girl are being beaten, you'd expect the boy not to cry, even though you have inflicted similar amount of pain on the boy. And when it goes to a man, they will tell him that can't you man up, just man up, be man enough. So emotionally, men are believed to be emotional. So if a man grows up to hide his emotion, he cannot express his feelings, and so mental health conditions will even hide from that. And socially, a man is made to be in the middle. To his children, is a father, and they do not care what he has to do to the wife. To the wife is a husband, and she doesn't really care whether he has to take care of children, he must take care of her. To the parent, is still a son, and to the community, he might be an imam, he might be a pastor and co. So even socially, the traditional gender roles on a man are all encompassing and very challenging, and this makes a man himself to be an endangered species.
Wow. That was beautiful. That's a lot to unpack. Sincerely, I don't know where to start from, but you really dropped some great nuggets there. And it's interesting to note that even some of these things are medically proven. I wasn't thinking about it in a way that the survival of women is more proven medically than men. If you look at so many houses, the husbands die earlier than the women. I used to just think maybe it's just naturally. I didn't know even there are medical proofs for that. So that's quite interesting. While you were speaking, you said something that caught my attention, which is true. Everywhere you go, you hear men don't cry. You have to man up. And this is leading to this question, which I want to ask now. So, are there particular challenges or expectations regarding communication and emotional expressions that may affect men's mental health?
Yes, exactly. Now, because of this fact that biologically a lot is there for men, psychologically it should be emotionless, and socially it's traditionally to be very demanding. So there are a lot of challenges that come along with it. And what are some of these problems that like you have wanted to know? One of it is that because the man is not allowed to communicate his feelings, so he is at a higher risk of having emotional disorders. So when you talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorder, and even depression disorder, they are actually very high. In fact, when you talk about the final phase of them, which is suicide, you would see suicide to be almost 5 times as higher in men than in women. In fact, most often than not, when women attempt suicide, is more or less for attention seeking. So you would see most women having attempted suicide, while most completed suicide are actually in men. Why? Because they cannot communicate. So they are suffering in silence, they are going through depression, they cannot tell their family, they cannot tell people how anxious they are. Because when they make these expressions, they are being counted to be inferior. So men to go through all these mental health challenges, and of course, and this is one of the reasons, because a man cannot really communicate, then men get to have anger tendencies, they to be unduly aggressive, and they even fall into crimes because of this. Because a man has a lot of issues that cannot emotionally articulate, so he tends to put these emotions on other people and displays these emotions on them, and then even going into different violence and being caught for crime, and this cycle goes on and on all over. All because this man cannot communicate. There's a concept that is called presenteeism. Presenteeism is a kind of situation in which a man is not feeling well, but he has to come to work. He has to come to the mosque. He has to come to the community. So he's just being present. Indeed, it's not really, maybe it's a Muslim that is praying. He misses his prayer. He has forgotten what was recited. If he's going to be just going to work, press his computer, but he's not really there because he's having emotions which he cannot express, and though he's becoming present. And for presenteeism, people go to depression, and many people that commit suicide. So this has shown that they must have gone through some of these suicidal ideation and thoughts at this stage before they eventually tend to go being actively suicidal.
Wow. That's that's complicated. I love the fact we're having this conversation and it's even giving me a broader perspective on this. And subhanallah, it's sad that we don't usually talk about things like this, especially in our own part of the world, in Nigeria
Exactly.
or West Africa and things like that, which is want to make me segue towards cultural sensitivity and mental health. So how do we approach mental health discussions with Muslim men while being sensitive to cultural and religious expectations on masculinity?
Okay, okay, thank you very much. Yes, and you would see that all these issues they actually vary from location to location. Of course, based on the culture that is found in them, and particularly in this part of the world, it is even more common because the expectations of men are more, and this way of beating down the men's experiences is more. And what are the ways by which we can actually link them together? One of it is that our tradition, particularly part of the world, is too
Mhm.
demanding on a man. Like I mentioned earlier, tradition expects you to give everything and you cannot even seek for help when you need the help. In situations where even men and women earn the same amount of money, the man will still not be able to even ask the woman to do some things for him or the family, even for herself, just because of what the culture demands. So because of this, it leads to people having problems in coping. And that is why you see that today there are a lot of addictions starting from the substance use addiction, you see taking hard substances so as to cope with some of these stresses of life, and then going into all these addictive behaviors like gambling, pathological gambling, gaming, sexting, internet addiction, and all these kind of behavioral addiction. All of them are just what people are actually derived to cope, and eventually they become addicted on them, and then it turns to them having further mental illness in this wise. So I think the culture is actually one of the things that puts too much demand on the men. Like I mentioned, the culture puts a man in the middle and he almost has no control of himself, but is to control others,
Mm.
even against his own individual feelings. So one would expect that culturally, people are made to become sensitive to the role of a man, and then, like it's being said in this part of the world now, you have to learn the man beats and don't suffocate men culturally.
Let the masses breathe. Okay, this time it's the men that have to breathe.
Yeah,
Thank you
don't
for that.
suffocate men.
Thank you for that. That's true. I like the fact that this is coming from a medical professional because sometimes people don't understand the pains of men, and truly, men don't speak out. And it's not so easy. We don't really have that community support, which we should have. And to be honest with you, it's one of the goals of even starting this podcast, Pure Masculinity. We want to rub minds together. We want to have men do things right, have a support group for ourselves, build a tribe, and help each other grow. And I hope and pray, inshallah, Allah will help us achieve this. You're really doing a great job being there as well in this field and supporting people. May Allah ease your affairs and continue to guide you as well. So, while speaking, you mentioned a few things, depression, anxiety, and the likes. I'll come back to that. But there is also this stigma that comes with seeking help, right? So, how can we say addressing mental health issues comes with stigma? For sure, we know that, especially in our own parts of the world, it comes with a kind of stigma. That's why people don't really like to express themselves. They'll think maybe you are mad or you're crazy or you have to go to a psychiatric hospital and things like that, right? So addressing mental health issues can sometimes come with stigma, particularly around masculinity. You have mentioned some of these things in the course of your responses. So, but how can we as a Muslim community reduce this stigma, especially for men? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay. Now,
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, I really appreciate this your particular question. You have really said it all. One of the central dogma of all this is stigmatization. A man is actually stigmatized. All this issue of emotional, emotionless, and all this, they are actually a result of the man feeling that if he tries to expose his emotion, is being stigmatized as not being man enough. So what are the results? One of it is what you have done to you have commenced, this pure masculinity, dedicating programs that will be dedicated to men. Everything is for women, Ministry of Women Affairs, everything, even when men come to discuss. Unfortunately, even you see at the even when we're in school, we talk about sister circle. There is
Yes.
actually a brothers forum. You talk about anything at Muminot, Umuhat forum, they are just for women. Now, even when men come to meet, like with the northern Nigeria, that's what they call Mojalisa. In the south, they are more or less like clubs. Even when men themselves meet, we still have this internal stigmatization. What do I mean? We talk more about football, about soccer, about politics. We do not even take time to talk about our own problems. You see a man who is going through trauma in his family, he has met with his friends, rather than bring down those discussions, how they can help him, he's talking about football, talking about politics. So even when we meet ourselves, men tend to talk about issues that are external. So we now tend to internet our own problems. So starting from this kind of program itself is a go-to program. And I want to invite people to subscribe this kind of program. Start to learn more about you as men, because many men are dying inside and they are seriously underperforming. Because all these things in the event, they even affect the GDP of a country. When the men who are productive are not actually productive. That's one. Then and what can this lead to? It can lead to better advocacy. So this kind of particular event is a way of advocating that men too need to speak out, need to voice out, and need to identify that they can have problems and emotionally express their problem, because a problem shared is expected to be a problem that is abstract. So expressing yourself in the right places, discussing those problems itself can actually be a way of making it up. I will give the example. Usually, even in exams, when applying medical exams, usually medical can be so tough that one might even have to cry. When a lady cries in an exam, she's offered an handkerchief to clean her face and probably reassure that it's better. But when a man cries, it's like you'll be punished. No, don't cry in my office. You see, what they are taught in the same courses, they are come for the same exam. What as the question is the same. So if a woman will cry because of a tough exam condition, why can't a man cry? So so men, and it will be interesting to know that those examiners who are telling the man not to cry are even men, not even women. So the way out is that men ourselves must identify our problems and destigmatize ourselves from this problem. In our discussion among ourselves, in our examinations, in all ramifications, this stigma is internalized, and it is the men that can actually bring a solution to this problem. If a man can create a sister circle as an amir or as a minister, you can also create a forum for brothers to also come and discuss their problems. So thank you very much.
No, that's a beautiful response, and I agree with you as well, because I have also been to maybe youth events whereby young people, we had a private sessions. Female were separated, men were separated, and some of the brothers, some of the things they were expressing, subhanallah, you'd be surprised. People are going through a lot of things. People have challenges, and yeah, I think it gives you that sacredness to be able to express yourself, which is also a way forward for you to be able to find like minds, to find solutions to your issues. And Jazakallah khair, thank you for that as well. So this leads me to this question, which I want to share as well. So recently, I was also on a podcast which is called Muslims on the Move, and there was this question that arose around depression and things like that. So when the questioner asked me, I told them it's better that they go and consult a medical professional to help them answer the question. So, but in this part of the world, there is also this belief that when you take antidepressants or medicines, that it has a side effect on you, right? So I think it's one of two questions. So I'll come back to that. But some people have this belief that Muslims cannot be depressed, right? But I think it's a mythology. So what is the advice you have for Muslim men or individuals who might be hesitant to seek professional mental health support? Because there is this preconceived notion that, oh, if you go and talk to a medical professional, they'll think you are mad. Or maybe when they give you medicine, they think that medicine will have an adverse effect on you. So those are two things that are in this question, which I would like you to touch on briefly. So, what advice would you give to men who might be hesitant to speak to mental health professionals for support?
Thank you very much for this very, very beautiful question. And I think you are addressing the point already. A basic issue we have is the issue of seeking for help. We either do not seek help at all, or when we seek, we do not seek adequately, or we even seek when the problems are already overwhelming. That's late presentation. And all this actually born out of superstitions. I'm usually glad when people bring all these things that Muslims don't go depressed. I want to ask them which Quranic context of prophetic hadith or which ulama put that position, because we are very much aware that even in the prophetic era there were situations where Islam said was even depressed. In fact, scholars said that the surah waduha walayli idha saja mawadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala walal akhiratu khairul laka min al-ula. The context of that chapter as expressed was to put the prophets of Islam out of a depressed state. And if you read to the end of that particular chapter, you would see that it is more or less a consoling chapter that is taking the Prophet Islam out of this particularly low state. So even, and we have history, even among the Sahabiyas, those that don't even go into depression or even go into very severe ones. I have written an article before on suicide at the Islamic perspective, and to try to denounce some of these myths and misconceptions that say that a Muslim cannot be depressed. So because all this affect our health-seeking behavior, so a Muslim naturally is expected to be able to seek help and seek the adequate help. And now, the good thing about mental health intervention is that just as the problems that lead to mental health challenges are not single-headed, the solutions are also not single. In fact, we could classify them into biological, psychological, social, and spiritual. What we conclusively term as biopsychosocial-spiritual. So it's not all the time that we give medication. As a matter of fact, at the mild and early presentation periods, we usually just give psychosocial treatment or even spiritual if necessitated. So the first thing we must understand is that mental health interventions are not exclusively medications, and even when they don't have to be medicated, those medications are usually for some period of time, and then they are withdrawn, and then the person is maintained on psychological treatment and social treatment. So that's the first thing. So there are a lot of misconceptions about the mental health intervention, to believe that they are only due to medications, and those medications are actually having a glamour of side effects. Then secondly, the medications that were actually prescribed, they are actually individual centered. I mean, they are client centered. So usually they are being chosen from a glamour of choices, looking at the person's background, physical state, the psychological condition, the financial status, and even social level. So before you even give somebody a particular medication, we want to consider all these factors, and then they are actually given under the person's consent. And you would have been told that these are the possible side effects. And if the person has such, the person can be integrated and the person can be replaced. So the basic point we are having is that we are not having information. And that's why an event like this is actually an adequate one. And I want to recommend people to be participating in kind of podcast like this, which tries to unravel some of these superstitions we have had about mental health intervention and all sorts. For example, a lot of men are going through anxiety, and because of this anxiety, people even go for exams, they go for interviews, being anxious, and they do not perform because they are anxious. Of which, if they had seen a mental health specialist who had prescribed anxiety, they would have done better in that particular interview. Correct. So, and medications are not their statement, and unfortunately, we now go for interventions that are costlier. They are more expensive, they are more demanding, and they are even not evidence-based. Thank you very much.
That's beautiful, mashallah. When you were speaking, you made mention of spirituality as even the mental health challenges could also come from a spiritual angle, which is one area I also want to delve into. I'm surprised you mentioned that because, as a professional, as a medical professional, we'll think maybe it's just from the medical perspective. But alhamdulillah, you as a Muslim, you understand that there could also be a spiritual realm to it. So, but um, I want to understand, how does spirituality, including practices like salah, prayer, dua, and connection to religious identity, intersect with the mental health of men? Does it have a role to play?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then when I talk about biopsychosocial spiritual, I'm not talking about an idea. This is the World Health Organization's current model for managing conditions. It is just because it is we in mental health that tend to be holistic in managing conditions. So even for a condition like hypertension, for diabetes, for cancer, it is biopsychosocial spiritual. So what do we mean by this spirituality? I'm not talking about religiosity, which is more or less a general, an individual belief or practice. Spirituality has to do with your humanity, your connection with people, your connection with the Almighty, and your connection with society. So even in the originality of some conditions, some spiritual defects can be part of it. For example, many of the conditions that we have today, they actually resulting based on some of our overvalued ideas or some of our divisions. Somebody that is having a diabetes, whose sugar level is becoming high, and maybe is urinating excessively or other things, is now being told that it is somebody in your family that is responsible. If that person was spiritual enough, you will have to know this needs a medical intervention. So even in the etiology, in the causality of conditions, spirituality can be there. Secondly, in the clinical presentation, spirituality can be, for example, when somebody is having, let's say somebody is having depression, is having a low mood, is losing concentration, is not gaining sleep, and then is becoming suicidal. And people that notice that so and so are not coming to work again, they are not thinking of death, they will say, over my dead body. So if the person is spiritual, spirituality will tell you that as a person, as a human being, you can always have the good days and the bad days. But that day is a bad day, so you can seek for help. So even spirituality can even encourage health-seeking behavior, because even the prophets, they also had the times that they needed healing, and they sought for healing, and they were healed. So spirituality can also be helpful in health-seeking behavior, and then in management. Things like meditation, yoga, recitation, and all those things, they are ways of even supporting somebody going through a mental like depression. That's why you see that in terminal conditions, in palliative conditions, people that are having cancer, see them inviting imams, inviting pastors for intervention, which shows that even at the early phases, this spirituality would actually be helpful. But sometimes we are more engrossed in religiosity, just individual practice, even though we are passing the religion, but it's not showing our behavior. So I'm talking of the kind of connectedness. So there's something that we call the ABC of connection. The A is self-connection, being aware by yourself that I'm a human, I'm a man, I can be depressed, I can be overworked, I can be stressed up. So when I feel this and this like this, I need to seek for help. So connecting with yourself and being sincere and realistic to yourself. Then the second one is connecting to others, connecting to your family, to your people, to your spouse, to your community. It's a way of also getting rid of this thing. By the time you bring out your emotion, and the most important thing, the last one, is connecting with your creator. Taking time to pray, taking time to meditate, taking time to fantasize about positive future are ways of even relieving yourself of all these emotional disturbances and stressful and traumatic states. So the goal of spirituality in identifying conditions, in presentation, and even in intervention cannot be overemphasized in any form.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. That was so beautiful, beautifully put. MashaAllah. May Allah reward you abundantly for that. Subhanallah, this is just a lot. Even from your speech, I can deduce more questions that I would like to ask, but time, I'm trying to be very conservative of the time as well. But there's something I would like to ask as well. When it comes to mental health, there is a lot of societal expectations, like you said earlier in your speech. There's a kind of way in which people expect men to be. And it's in both genders, so they want women too to be a specific way. But I think there is more pressure on men, to be honest. And the societal expectations are there. So how do you expect us as men to navigate these societal expectations and still prioritize our mental health? For example, I've also gone through a point in my life whereby things were a bit difficult for me and I couldn't focus so much. But somebody just recommended for me that I should exercise. I should go and run every morning. And could you believe when I started running every morning, I gained more clarity? And it started from the fact that I had it in mind I wanted to get to a particular stoplight, a traffic light. So I was finding it very difficult because it's been a long time that I engaged in active physical sport. But immediately as I seen that light, there was clarity and of vision to me, and I did not stop until I got to that light. So it gave me that ability to focus more. It helped me even health-wise. It cleared my brain and a lot of things. So the point is, one of the points I'm trying to ask here is, how do we cope or navigate social expectations while prioritizing our mental well-being? And is there a role which exercise also play in the physicality and mental wellness of a man?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I like this your idea and the way you are coming in. I think one basic problem is that people do not understand what mental health is. So, and then we not an absence of disease of infirmity, but a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being. And so when you look at the mental and social well-being, they are both under mental health. So that's that the two-third part of health itself is mental health. And that's why it's commonly said that there is no health without mental health. So it will trace to now ask that, how they do define mental health? Now, mental health is defined in 4 ways. It is defined as the state of health in which an individual is able to realize his or her own potentials. They is able to cope with the normal stresses of life, is able to work productively and fruitfully, and is able to contribute to his or her own environment.
Sure.
So mental health is not just about, so that's why nobody is actually 100% mentally healthy. We are all ranging from 40, 50 or thereabouts, but the predisposition of stressful conditions then tilts us towards a mental illness. So in a way, the way to navigate through all these challenges, part of it was what you have said. Usually we talk about it in terms of biopsychosocial, spiritual well. But one of the most important of it is being aware of your current state of health and being able to speak out. And all this involves what we call a healthy well-being. You can otherwise call it healthy style of living. We start from the physical physique, trying to do exercises like yoga, meditation. Studies have shown that when you involve in all these exercises, they actually improve the good well hormones in the brain. Talk of the serotonin, the noradrenaline, all the hormones that regulate the emotional states. Exercises tend to promote them, and that is why people that have terminal conditions or even normal conditions, exercises are actually recommended. So having exercises that are usually physical and they are aerobic, they do not lead to overstressing yourself. They are a way on itself in trying to do mental health state. Then the other thing is positive mindedness. Usually, most of what they call the cognitive theory, it has been said that, you see, the way our behavioral response to conditions is actually as a result of the way we have perceived that condition. And that is why somebody can have a result and have a B, and somebody has a C. Another person that has a C just okay, well, thank God, just the first semester, I can get an A second semester and come up with the first class. And then he sees that particular C as a way to work harder, and then it's okay. Why the person that had a B has seen that B as a negativism and then become depressed? So our way, the way we look at things itself, if you are too negativistic about issues, it can affect your mental state. So having a positive mindedness itself is a way to cope in this kind of stress condition, which we can actually interpret as what is called positive reappraisal. Try to reappraise issues and looking at the positive side of issue. One of the causes of depression is this particular negativism, trying to always look at the negative side. If somebody has achieved 90%, he's looking at the 10% he hasn't achieved, rather than looking at the cup as being half full. People choose to look at the cup as being half empty, and all these particular ways of thinking, this way of perception, will actually reflect in our behavior. For example, if somebody passes by me now and person did not greet me, if I just that person did not greet me, probably he greeted me, I didn't hear, probably he did not see me, probably he does not understand I'm even here. Even though that when I just consider that we should give our brother 40 excuses. Not even give 40 excuses, that itself is a lot of positivism. True. So one has to be positive in this. Then socially, one has to be socially involved. One has to connect. One has to participate in the community, participate in the society, in your workplace. One has to be involved in a particular way of belong. Irrespective of the age, the gender, the social class, or the status, you have to socialize with people. So these are ways by which you can actually improve your mental. So in other words, one's mental health is actually a primary function of that person. So nobody can make you depressed if you are not depressed. And whoever is standing will be supported. But if you are sitting, you can be stepped upon. So one way by which you can solve our mental health challenges is trying to encourage ourselves so that others can also be encouraged by us.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. That's beautiful. I am really enjoying this conversation, honestly. I want to camel back on some of the things you said, one of which was the ways in which we are connecting as well. That's a very good point. Connecting with Allah, connecting with ourselves, and also connecting with our environment. That's very important. You know, I can relate to the example of the analysis which you gave about the grades, even while we were in school. We know how some people are so excited, even getting a D. They will say, oh, thank God, though, I didn't get an F. While somebody is mad that he didn't get an A and he got a B. So truly, I think one key point there as well is expression of gratitude. I think gratitude might have a long way to go in also improving our mental health as well. Just like you said, seeing the glass half full and not half empty. Thanking God for the good things that you have, the ones that you possess, while hoping to get the ones you are still aspiring for, not complaining about the ones you don't have, or looking at people that are above you. That would only lead you to ingratitude, comparison, and things like that. So Jazakallah khair, thank you for that. While you were speaking, something came to my mind. You mentioned how maybe people don't know their mental health level, or that most people are just within 50 and above. So how can we assess our mental health level? How do we know even if we are mentally healthy? But before we go to that, one thing that also came to my mind is, I think you said something based on how important mental health is. From this conversation, I'm beginning to realize that mental health is even the most important health aspect of our lives, to be honest. And I have proof for that even Islamically, in the sense that if you look at it, why did the Prophet ﷺ tell us that there are some categories of people whom the pen has been raised from? A child before he gets to the age of maturity, someone who is sleeping, and somebody who is mentally unstable. So it just came to me while you were speaking that indeed Allah recognizes the importance of mental health. That is why there is no sin on you when you're mentally unstable. So, but to the question which I wanted to ask, which is how can we access our mental health? How do we know if we are mentally fit or we are deprived?
Okay, thank you very much. Landing from where you have come from, we have two types of health. We have the physical health and the mental health. Actually, your mental health decides for how you react to your physical health. And that's why there is got a mind-body dualism. We're talking about the nerves, and all those are components of the mental health. So that's somebody that is having hypertension, if he's very much mentally stable, he can readily seek for help and then leave job and cope up with medication. But someone that is not mentally stable, no different identifying that is having the hypertension. Like I have mentioned, Islam has recognized that somebody has to be mentally stable before he can even be judged.
Yeah.
So now, going to the question about how do we assess mental health? Yes, mental health is actually very beautiful, and is one health by which we have what we call psychological instruments, psychological tools that we use to access almost every aspect of mental state. In fact, there is a tool that we use to assess for depression in children. There is one for general population, and there is one for adults. So when you use this tool, it asks for, and the score can tell whether you're having is it person at risk of depression, is it mild depression, is it more than severe, and can even decide for the person to go for a mental intervention or not. And even for people that take substances, there are so many psychological instruments that if somebody presents now that is taking substance, we will ask the person 1, 2, 3 questions, we will score the person, then we will say that the person needs to be admitted or needs to just be psychoeducated or is free of substance use disorders. So there are so many tools that are being used by experts to assess a mental health condition, which are then tried to be adjudged along with the clinical state of that person. There's something that is called psychological thermometer that is even used to assess the psychosocial state of somebody. Just like we use the thermometer to assess somebody's level of temperature, you can use to assess level of pain, level of psychological disturbance, and others. So it depends on the environment, the age, and even the locality or the presenting situation of that particular individual. So we have many tools that we use to assess people's level of cognition, emotion, mood, aggressiveness, and all sorts. And usually we tend to do these tools clinically. And in fact, even for research purposes, we use some of these tools to diagnose people of conditions or to screen people for mental health interventions before you can even interview the people in the community. Mental health is very beautiful, but it is very demanding. The training is very rigorous, and it involves a lot of interest, a lot of concentration, because you are dealing with many things that are looking a bit more vague, unlike what you can see, you can touch, and you can feel. So a lot of things are in the mental health realm, but because it is an emerging subspecialty, that's why many people are not very much aware of it, and many people tend to die in silence.
No. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for that beautiful response. And that reminds me, by the way, congratulations on all your achievements, your recent achievements. May Allah bless it for you. You know, you've always been somebody who is outstanding right from school days, and you kept trailing the blaze, and it's really impressive that at this level you are a consultant in your field, and this is not just an easy field in medicine. We all know how challenging medicine is. To be a specialist in psychiatry, alhamdulillah, Allahumma barik. While you were speaking, something came to my mind as well, which is addiction. And I've been willing to address addiction on this podcast. A lot of brothers are addicted to things, vapes, women, pornography, so many things. Lie, and we don't usually talk about these things. Even yesterday, I was opportune to meet someone. We were talking, and the guy just said he needed to talk to someone. And when he started talking to me, he felt so easy. But he told me that the only way he gets off all these things is by smoking. He smokes marijuana. So I don't know. People are addicted to a lot of things. What is the best strategy to get off addiction?
Okay, thank you very much. And like I mentioned earlier, because men are going through unnecessary, undue, and hyper-intensive stressful conditions and expectations. So there is what we call maladaptive coping mechanism. One of those mechanisms is addiction. When people go depressed, they go to take alcohol or they go to take cocaine, which makes them high, and then they forget about depression. But that is not that, because it only takes your depression temporarily. It does not have an everlasting solution. And now we have the worst form of addiction, the behavioral addiction, or even what you can call addictive behaviors, the gambling, pornography, video gaming, internet addiction, which affect the brain just the same way as those substances or drugs affect the brain as well.
Wow.
So addiction is a very big problem, and it is not just a biological problem. It has biological basis, psychological, and even social consequences. So, and it is actually worse when it is commenced at younger ages, because
Yeah.
at those ages the brain is just being formed. So the addiction will then, the substance of behavior will then restructure the architecture of the chemistry of the brain, and then lead to long lasting problems, or even sometimes causing psychosis or even other disorders. So there are different ways to take care of addiction. One of it has to do with presenting. So usually is to present, but one of the recommendation I can talk about is being assertive. Assertiveness is a concept where you say no and you mean no. So a man needs to be assertive. So when you are being overworked in your family, at your place of work, you don't need to take all the roles. When you mean no, you should say no. You have to take time for your rest, take time for sleep, take time for yourself, take time to meditate and to connect. So within the family, within the community, one has to be assertive. So when you have to know your bounds, rather than trying to do what you cannot do and then going into something that is addictive to cope. Why not refuse to do that ab initio? That's why I appreciate when you're coming for this program. You spoke to me, you asked for my time, you gave me options of time, options of date, and you made sure that it was a convenient period for both of us. Many people would not have done that. Okay, come to our studio by 4 p.m. and to our solo time. They're not even looking at the person's own schedule. So a man needs to be assertive, because many of these addictive behaviors are actually resulting from our inability to be able to mean what we say and say what we mean, among other causes of that. And of course, trying to speak about this problem, try to talk to people who can actually recommend solutions, and better still, try to make a specialist. Most often than not, we tend to see people who cannot help us, and we tend to spend more on some of these people rather than seeking for the evidence-based and orthodox care that can give us solutions.
Subhanallah. Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. Jazakallah khair. So, finally, let's wrap it up, inshallah. I'll ask one last question, which is, if you look, a lot of times, even in the course of this conversation, you affirmed it that people are battling with a lot of things: stress, anxiety, depression, and they're just managing it, they're bottling it up, right? And trying to be a man. So what is the best coping strategy, or can you recommend some practical self-care practices that you would recommend for Muslim men in order to be able to overcome these things?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. One of the ways that we need to understand is that we need to understand ourselves and understand when we are debating. So by the time you start having problems in doing your regular routines, I mean, one wakes up, one starts to miss tajud, one is missing his regular askar, one is missing the salawat, or having to combine prayers, then there is a problem. Sometimes, like I mentioned, spirituality itself can give you a notion of a problem coming. So you have to note your routine. You have to note an early deviation as soon as possible. The secondly is that we need to be able to collaborate with people, to share ideas, to work together, and to be able to have division of labor in whatever we are doing. As a man, you cannot do everything. So you have to be able to work with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues at work, without trying to be macho, without trying to feel like you can do everything at all. So this work is now a collaborative work. What we know, we have the work is not a global village. Anywhere you are, you can always work with people. And I tell you, my success is not all connected to my collaborative sense. I work with anybody who's ready to work. In fact, I find it difficult to hold a position without having a deputy or a secretary or someone I'm going to be discussing with. And I don't care your gender, your age, your location, your demographic status. You must ready to work. And I can say that you as a person was indeed, or has indeed been a collaborator and of course a mentor to me. So many people are actually suffering because we are doing alone what we should do with people. So we have to also make sure that we are mentors, and we have people who are mentors to us and people who are mentees to us. For example, now a lot of problems that we have is that we have lost this concept of modeling. If you are a Muslim and you are a psychiatrist, I want to be a successful Muslim psychiatrist, Muslim businessman, you have to look for Muslims who are successful in that your profession, that your goal, and be models after them. So you have to look people who are senior colleagues, who are in that profession, and who have made it. So you can learn for that. In university, we start MSN 100 level tutorials, who have scaled to that position, who taught school. But people today go into different professions without learning about that profession or without seeking people who have been successful in that. So I want to recommend us to be seeking for collaboration and seeking for mentorship and of course modeling. Today we want to like Salam, we dress up is our model, but then we have is our goal or model, but then we are working towards footballers, musicians who do not have the same goal as we are. So as Muslims, we must model our life towards people who have been successful, not only professionally, but indeed Islamically professional. So I owe my success to Allah, to my mentors, and of course to my collaborators, one of which is you, Abdulkareem Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khair for your kind words. That was beautiful. It's been a very, very interesting conversation in which I wish we had more time, but I'm hoping, inshallah, we can still bring you back some other time to still talk further. I've gained a lot from this conversation. I've learned more from it as well. And I really want to appreciate you for your time and your dedication. Keep trailing the blaze in your field. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to protect you and elevate you and grant you success in all your endeavors as well. So on that note, inshallah, we'll wrap it up. It's been a wonderful session with Dr. Yasir Abdulkareem, a consultant in the field of psychiatry. He's been spending the past few minutes with us, rubbing minds on this podcast as regards to men's mental health for Muslim men, why it's very important for us to take our mental health serious. And because this is November, which is men's mental health awareness, we also decided to dedicate this podcast to have this conversation. But I'm hoping, inshallah, we'll still look into talking about some other aspects of mental health with you in the future, inshallah. If you're available, I hope you would honor our invitation.
Thank you very much. I must really commend you for this kind of innovative thinking, and I want to really seek for more people to support you. Because if that is the way to go, we must bring more advocacy, more education, and more information. Because generally, ignorance is a major problem in people. And once we have information like this, we have solved of our problems. I really be very much.
Thank you so much. I mean, Wayana Jamian. On that note, we'll call it a day. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. As we always say, keep striving to be the best of you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with other brothers who would also benefit from this podcast. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yes.